So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name's Ben Elliott. I am a Business Development Manager here at Crown Digital Services. I'm joined today by my colleague and the Head of Consultancy and Technical, Michelle Kamath. Hi.
Hello.
Often we're asked, frequently we are asked what we consider to be the differences between records and information management. And we thought rather than continually putting up frequently asked questions, we'd have a bit of a discussion so that everyone can be on the same page. So I suppose I'm going to point my first question at Michelle, which is going to be, Michelle, what do you consider to be the difference between records and information management? And more importantly, would you use both within an organisation?
Okay, so for me, the first thing we need to understand is what is a record and what is information. So records are basically made up of information, and the information is made up of data. So you can see how one builds on top of the other. So basically capturing that data, collating it, creating meaningful information from that data, and then putting it on a record is basically what we're talking about when we talk about records and information. Record and information management is therefore how are we dealing with both of those once we've got them into that format. So we've got a record format. How are we going to handle that? Where are we going to store it? How are we going to keep it? How long do we need to keep it? How do we find it if we need to use it? Who can find it? A lot of those things still transfer over to the information. How are we going to do that? And the same process applies. The difference therefore is when we are using them in a business. So yes, we do use them both within a business, but for various reasons. So the records are generally a snapshot of time, a piece of a contract, a deed, for instance, something that we might need to keep in its original format as the original copy. Information is normally live. It's the data that keeps getting updated and driving the business. So usually that's how you can differentiate between the two.
Yeah,
do you agree?
Yeah, I was going to say, I just to add to that, I think that in reality, it's about how it's utilized as well. So a record is really a piece of information that's come to the end of its life and is required to be stored. And often we see that can be for a number of different reasons. It could just be that somebody might like to look at it in 10 years' time, and so records can be kept for a very long period of time. But it can be for compliance reasons. If we look at financial records, obviously they have specific retention policies. If we talk about HR documentation, obviously that has slightly different retention. But again, that record is a piece of information that's almost come to the end of its life. Whereas information management, I think you said it perfectly when you said it's more likely to be live information. It's that type of information that you utilize day to day in that business, and in reality both are essential, but you have to treat them as slightly different in how you manage them moving forward. And why you might use one over the other is going to depend very much on what is essential for your organization and for your business. Absolutely, because you need that live data, that information. So for instance, you're getting financial information in, you've raised a PO. That PO actually becomes a record later down the line. But you're taking that data off it, and then you're going to get the invoice in. Well, the invoice becomes a record down the line, but the data and that financial information gets put into your financial systems. You can start to make decisions on it based on your cash flow or things like that. So that's how you can start making informed decisions. And that's just one small example. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's whilst we have to do some of these things, as I mentioned, the compliance, there can often be some significant benefits to managing these things in an effective way. So from my point of view, if I'm looking specifically at records management, aligning what we're doing to that compliance element is often essential, particularly in the world we now live in with GDPR and the privacy requirements around some of that information. It's really, really important. So Michelle, why is it that we think that information management and records management are important to a particular organization? Let's start with records management. Obviously, I mentioned the need to ensure that we have records from a compliance point of view, but why do you think it's important to have good records management within an organization?
Well, in simple terms, I suppose it's about we've produced this record, which we've already ascertained has got information and data on it that is critical to the business. So we've got this record. Well, how do we know where it is? How do we know who needs it? How do we know where to find it? How do we know how long to keep it and in what format? And how do we know when we can destroy it and how are we going to destroy it? Those are things that we need to know about all of the records and information that we've got in our business, and that is all summed up in good record management. So I guess the opposite of if you don't have good record management, you've got the opposite of all of that. You don't know where anything is, you don't know how to find it, you don't know who can access it, and it's all of the inefficient things.
You mean I'm not allowed to just randomly shred pieces of paper that I don't know what they're for? No, I'm being facetious, but I do agree. I think that it's realistically, when it comes to good records management, it's about knowing where something is, why I'm keeping it, because frequently in our industry we find records boxes with, you know, maybe one sheet of paper or the Christmas decorations in. So why are we storing particular documents? Why are we storing anything within an organization? And then that ability to locate and retrieve those elements. But actually, a lot of those are the same reasons why good information management is important, because it is important to if we think about it from a digital point of view, it's essential to understand where documents are, why we're producing them, where they're going. So in reality, is there really that big of a difference between those two elements when we think about it?
There is, in that, yes, there are some similar basics, absolutely. But for me, the difference around information management is that we've agreed that, or I told you, that data is what is put on information. And therefore, it's the data element of this part that makes information management more interesting, because that data can be put into multiple different systems, or that data could be applied in a workflow. So it's about where is that data flowing, who's keeping an eye on it, who's got access to it, who can approve it, who's making decisions on that data that's going on to this in this world of information. So it actually, from an information perspective, it goes much broader, because you're going into digitalization, or you're going into automation, and how you can then put security around that information built into a system, and how you can then drive management through technology. So it allows you to do it, what opens you up to a bigger world, information management.
I think that's one thing that here at Crown we're actually really well placed to be able to assist with, is that holistic kind of top-down view on everything that's going on within your organisation, because we do manage the physical element, but we are able to assist with that digital element. And ultimately, to my mind, I look at these things as really, it's about presenting the right information to the right people at the right time to be able to make a decision, and then to store that decision and the record of that decision in a way that it can be interrogated at a later date. And that could just be the invoice, it could just be the decision-making process itself. But
it could be a dashboard.
I was going to say, because to your mind, I mean, obviously lots of organizations that I talk to from a business development point of view are fairly early in this understanding, and they see a real difference between the physical and that digital. Obviously you spend a lot more time going in depth with some of our clients. Do they still have that view by the end, or do you think that we managed to move them away to a view of completeness, as it were?
I think so. I think that people understand that there's there's more than just the record now, and there's the information, but it's about how they work with that data, and it's about helping them understand, how to capture that data rather than the record, how to process that data, how to make that data secure. There's a lot of there's quite often people understand, well, who can access that data, and how do we make that data secure? How are we sure that the data that we hold in a cloud or a data center is actually, or that information that we've got is not open to breaches, that if a system goes down, we've got backup. So it's about so much more of the security, and being with a customer is actually helping someone understand all of that information, what needs to be on a record, what's held in a system, how that is secure, how they can trust it and have confidence in that information.
Yeah, I'm always really astounded by the number of conversations that start with, I want to do this. And the very first question that thankfully you taught me to ask realistically is, well, why? Because 9 times out of 10 organizations want to do something, but they don't really know why they want to do a specific thing, which is why I think things like our business process reviews, which to those of you not in the know is realistically a third-party review or audit of your records and information management processes. I think that they're really functionally beneficial for an organization, even in the long term, to be able to assess and understand exactly why it is they're doing something, rather than simply ploughing onwards because digital is the future and we need to do information management and this is how we go about it.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately as well, in that regard, we've got there's the process, there's a business process review, how people are working and what they're doing and that sort of position, but then there's the underlying data. So how understanding what that data is, categorizing it, indexing it, and allowing that data to drive the process. So there's 2 layers to that which support the records and information management element of a review.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really important point is it's not just that there's those two levels. There's ultimately multiple different ingestion points, be that digital first type documentation, be that the digitalization of historical documentation. It's not just the storage, it's how you get to that storage in the end and what you can do in the meantime. Mm-hmm. There's a slide on up at the moment, and we talk about capturing, processing, managing and storing, reporting and measuring. The second that you have a structured records and information management plan and process in place, I think it's actually inevitable that you're in a much better place to be able to automate and improve the efficiency of your organization. Would you agree with me there? I mean, you're nodding, but
absolutely.
I'll ask the question.
I do agree, because data is the foundation of every business and organization, isn't it, in all sorts of formats. So you've really got to understand your business data. For me, you can apply the 5 W's to it. So what is the data? Why do you need it? Where do you keep it? Who needs it? And when do you destroy it? Or when do you no longer require it? So, that's what you need to understand about your data. And then that's how you can then make business decisions based on that. It's essential, as it says on the slide, to understand that.
And I think you make a really interesting point, which is you need to be able to understand to make a decision. And that's one of the biggest things that I think that at Crown we're really good proponents of, which is there is no point just doing something for the sake of doing it. Understand what the end goal is, where you are right now, and draw a line between the two. And that way you end up with much more successful solutions to issues within the business, but also you are naturally improving your records and data and information management before you go through that process of optimization and improvement, and the combination of those 2 things together is essential.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not going to waffle on anymore. I'm not going to take up much more of your time. I know you've got you're busy at the moment, so I'd just like to thank you for joining me and having a brief conversation about records and information management.
Anytime.
Thank you for everyone who's been able to join, and if anyone wants any further details are on the screen, please feel free to reach out, or to reach out anyone at Crown Records Management. We have a huge number of solutions and services available that can help with both your records and information management needs. Hopefully we will speak to you all soon. Thank you again, Michelle. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.